Hi everyone, and welcome to the launch of N-central 10.1. Very exciting webinar for us today. As you know, we do 1 to 2 major releases per year, so a lot of time, a lot of effort has gone into the release of N-central 10.1. And before we get the question, yes, it's already out. So for every major release of N-central, we do a very long beta period. We collect lots of feedback from all of our beta testing partners, and we only release once we've gone through all of those 3 months of beta, tested every single feature in the product, and so we've gone generally available as of last week. So right after the webinar, I'd encourage you to reach out to your channel sales representative, and if you haven't tried N-central yet, go to enable.com, sign up for a trial, and get your hands on the latest release of N-central. I'm your host today, Ali Mahmood, and joining me is Scott Parker. And Scott right now is the product manager for patch management. And you're going to see a lot of great patching functionality, a lot of scheduling, organization, that kind of feature add-ons to N-central. So Scott's here with us today. He's going to walk us through patch management and some of the other great features in N-central 10.1. So I'd really encourage you at any point during the webinar, if you have questions for me or for Scott, go ahead, type those into your chat box, and we'll try to keep this a little bit interactive and ask those questions as we're going through the slides and as we're going through the demo. Before I jump into N-central 10.1, I just wanted to give everybody a quick recap of 2015. I think this has been a very exciting year for us as a company. So just this year alone, we've added 2,500 new MSP partners. And those are partners trying all of our different product lines. So we now have N-central and that product family. We have 2 newly acquired companies and technologies, and that's MSP Manager and MSP Anywhere. MSP Manager is a ticketing, knowledge management, service management, and a billing platform. So just a fantastic platform that we acquired back in August of 2015. And then MSP Anywhere is a remote control platform which was formerly named Be Anywhere. And Be Anywhere has been around for about, I want to say 14 years. Had lots of customers, happy customers using the platform. So I think, we kind of struck gold acquiring those 2 technology platforms. And today we're talking about the MSP Manager integration in N-central 10.1. And coming in Q1 of next year, we'll be talking about the integration of MSP Anywhere into N-central. Apart from those 2 acquisitions, those products though, we've actually released 20 different product updates to our various product lines. N-central 10 being one of those major releases, but definitely lots of other updates. So the products just keep getting better. The R&D team is massive, I think, at this point, and constantly improving on every single aspect of all of the products. When it comes to N-central 10, N-central 10 was, the culmination of almost 2 years of research and development. Lots of interviews with partners, with MSPs that were using previous versions of N-central and people who weren't even customers of Enable. Just getting lots of feedback from MSPs as a whole to create, what we think is one of the best user experiences out there in a remote monitoring and management product. So N-central 10 was this huge release. I'm hoping that you saw the demos, hoping that if you're an Enable partner, you've upgraded by now. And by now, actually, we've had 82% of Enable customers upgrade to N-central 10. So for us, within a 6-month period to have over 80% of our partners on the latest build of software, I think that just speaks to how much people love the functionality in N-central 10, and that caused them to do that upgrade fairly quickly. When it comes to N-central 10.1, which we're talking about today, the 4 main areas we want to go over is patch management, which is why Scott's here with us today, and he's going to take us through a deep dive of patch management and how that's improved. Customer organization. So we think we have this massive new functionality called customer sites that's going to let you better organize all of the devices under your customers and your service organization levels. We've Put a brand new fresh coat of paint on Automation Manager, made that easier to use, and added lots of little things to make automation, which was already pretty easy since it was drag and drop, but to make it even easier and lower the bar of entry. So now more people can be doing automation within your business. And finally, last but not least, MSP Manager, like I said, we just love this platform. We love the team that's been developing all of that great ticketing, ticket routing, all that great functionality in MSP Manager. And now with the N-Central integration, you can create those tickets automatically, and you can start tracking all of your automation that you do in N-Central as billable time in MSP Manager. So with that, I'm going to hand things over to Scott to walk us through, all the great work we've done on patch management, and then at the end of this, we'll be going through a demo of all of these features. Scott?
Oh, thank you very much. Okay, so this time around in the patch management world, we've tried to tackle a couple of kind of broader problems. So we know that there are those folks out there who are interested in that one-click automation. So they're using our automation rules. They're able to basically set up patch, fire and forget, and walk away from the system and let it do its thing. And I think that's fairly well taken care of in our system. But there are some folks who have that deeper need to dynamically schedule around their customers. We've got environments that are security conscious, or perhaps they have certain applications that just can't be patched or can't go down in certain windows. So we're talking banks and security institutions and anything around that kind of thing. The problem, of course, in our system has been that your schedules had been previously tied to profiles. So you can only really have a single schedule. You could have one install, you could have one set of detections, and that was about it. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to keep things simple for those who need that one-click solution, but we're trying to offer that dynamic breadth of scope for those who want that deeper control over patch management and that more granular control as far as scheduling is concerned. So that's what we've tried to tackle in this particular round. So, one of the things you're going to notice, for example, is your profiles are going to look a lot different. We've taken anything to do with scheduling out of that profile. So you no longer have your install window, you no longer have your detection window. Profiles are now, you can consider them to be the command and control of the system. So it is the how of patching, not the when of patching. That means you probably need less profiles within your system than you might have otherwise needed. It gives you much more control when you get to the scheduling side of things over detections, downloads, installs, and reboots, because all of those items have been moved into what we call maintenance windows. There's a bunch of great additions that come along with maintenance windows that I'll talk to you about in a few minutes. So, our patch profile then doesn't contain schedules. It does contain things like, do I communicate externally for updates? If the Windows update, or rather my patch cache isn't available, I'll go to Windows Update. If my third-party cache isn't available, I'm going to go straight to places like Adobe and Java and grab my updates there. Install missed patches on next boot. That's another item we've added into patch management, and that's going to give you the ability to say, okay, your device missed the window the previous night. We're going to go ahead and force patches the next morning. All of this to try and give you greater certainty that by the next day or partway through the next day, you aren't left with a bunch of devices that didn't patch because, those one or two customers just didn't leave their machines on at night. We weren't able to wake them up for whatever reason, and so they were left out. We want to make sure we capture as much of those as possible and deal with those as efficiently as possible. And you're going to see a lot of the changes here are geared towards making that happen for you. Again, you're gonna notice a trend through this, and it is a focus on keeping things simple, keeping things easy to use, while giving you that greater dynamic flexibility that a lot of our partners have wanted. Now, Ali, you and I talked a bit about this quite a bit on previous webinars, but the UX team, our user experience team, has added a lot to this process. So when we dove into patch and started to take kind of a fresh look at it, specifically from scheduling, we involved this new team that we have here in Enable called the user experience team. Some of you may have already had an opportunity to talk to them. They try and get our partners on a call and really delve into the workflow that you do day in and day out, and take a bunch of research and information from that, bring that back to product management with some conclusions, and help us shape our direction as we build and improve upon our solutions. So you'll notice that the The changes to patch have brought along with them things like wizards and wording changes and better help content and that sort of thing, and better workflows within the UI. And that's all because of this user experience team that we've brought into the Enable world, which not only will it help things like patch, but it helps everything in Enable and in the N-Central system top down.
Yeah, and Scott, I think that, basically anywhere in any of our products, but specifically in Central, we're looking for those pain points. Is anything taking too long? Or is there any functionality that you don't use as much as we think you should be using? So we want to move that out to different areas of the UI. And basically what 95% of all of our partners are using, we want to make that the fastest possible process that we can in the user interface. And the UX team is just great at that, at interviewing lots and lots of people and then getting all those common functionalities that people want and the common process that most of the people are using.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's continue on then. I was delving into profiles. Let's move on a bit from there. Let's talk a bit about maintenance windows. So we have moved patch management, all the scheduling has moved out of your profile now and has moved into what we call maintenance windows. And if you're not familiar with maintenance windows, some of the main differences between a point in time schedule like we used to have in the profile and a maintenance window would be things like in the profiles schedule, and let's say you were scheduled for 10 a.m. as an install time, the system would roll around at 10 a.m., check with your devices, say, hey, are you ready? We want to patch now. If the device wasn't ready at exactly that time, we would move on, and you would miss patching until the following week, essentially. With a maintenance window, however, we can define a period of time in which the system should continue to try to do its job. So, for example, you can see here we've set our detection at a 60-minute window. That means at midnight, it's going to kick off its 60-minute window. It's going to ask the device, hey, can I run a detection on you now? If that device is not ready that exact moment, no problem. We'll come back 10 minutes later, ask the device again, can we run our detection now? If it's still not ready, no problem. We'll keep trying in 10-minute intervals all the way up to that 60 minutes. So at some point when that computer becomes ready, it's good to go. Maybe it was rebooting from some other function, etc. It comes back to life. It says, yeah, I'm ready now. We say, perfect. Let's continue on with what we had scheduled, which was your patch detection.
And Scott, quick question from the audience. Is this a global maintenance window that's applied to all devices at a site, or can I customize that, among the different devices?
Totally customizable. So maintenance windows can be set up per device, it can be set up per customer, or it can be set up at the SO level. So you really have that broad spectrum of application that you can use, and that's been kind of our focus, is to give you that. You can go as granular as you need to with this, or as high level and kind of a one button push, to get it going, turnkey solution as much as humanly possible. So really, you can go either way. So yes, this really does give you that full gamut of options. So maintenance windows are going to give us that period of time in which activity can happen. So a lot less opportunity to simply miss it by a few seconds and now have to wait till until the next week. So we've moved all of our maintenance windows, or all of our schedules rather, into maintenance windows, and that includes our detection, our pre-download, which you may have been familiar with from the profile, installation, and reboot. So detection, we still say you should probably do it twice a day. You can control that within a maintenance window. Pre-download, that used to be something that was in your patch profile. It essentially, when you turned it on, told the system as soon as you approve patches to auto-download all those patches directly down to the end device. Which was fine, except a lot of people tend to approve midday, and the last thing you want to do is saturate your customer's bandwidth with downloads during that period of time. So we can now schedule that. We can say, you know what, I'm cool with pre-downloading, but I really want it to happen at night. I want it to happen at 1 a.m. rather than in the middle of the day. So you can approve, it'll pre-download and pre-cache all that information at night for me. The installation window has been brought into a maintenance window, and one of the other beautiful benefits of maintenance windows is you can have multiples. So where we were left with a single schedule before, you can now have as many schedules for installation or reboots or downloads as you choose. So this means, if I want to have patches, auto approve on Tuesday, but then not actually download until the second Thursday, that's fine. We can do that. That gives me a little bit of leeway between when it's released and when we're going to actually see it appear in the field. If I want to download and install every second Tuesday, it's going to allow me the leverage to do that. If I want to install 12 times a day, I can do that too. So it really gives us that dynamic scalability that you may need for certain clients and certain requirements that they have. Reboots had previously been in a large grid in maintenance windows where you could choose reboots for backup, AV, patch, etc. We've begun a process of taking those out of that large grid and individualizing them for their specific activity. So this is our first foray into that. So this is our first reboot window that is just all by itself, specifically for patch. Again, you can have multiple reboot windows if you need to have them. Now what I'm actually showing you here as we walk through is something else that came out of the UX effort, which is a wizard. So we're all very familiar with the wizard concept, and Central didn't have a lot of these wizards previously. The UX team, when they went out, found that patch management to set it up in a more complex way typically took 20 or so clicks. That's a lot of clicking within the UI and a lot of movement between the profiles and the rules and the maintenance windows. And coming in as a new individual to this process, that was a lot of learning and a lot of clicking. So from that feedback, they came back with the conclusion that what we really needed was a quick wizard that would just kind of get you through that process really easily and allow you to build all that dynamic functionality into the system without you having to know every nuance of where in patch management you would need to go. And so that's what we built for you. You'll see in patch management we have something called the patch setup wizard. One click on that will walk you through the process of generating your rule in the system with your profile selected, your maintenance windows set up, the name of the rule and third party enabled, your targets set up in there, and it generates it and it's ready to go. So instead of 20 clicks, we're down to about 5, and you can have more flexibility, more scalability with fewer clicks and a simpler interface. The summary at the end, again, because of the way maintenance windows work, we're really afforded a really nice schedule layout. So you can see here that when I get to the end of my patch setup wizard, the schedule is really nicely laid out for me. I can see at 12 a.m. we're going to patch detect, at 1 a.m. we're going to pre-download my information, at 2 a.m. we're going to start the install, and at 3 we're going to reboot if one is necessary. So it really kind of lays that schedule out, whereas before you had to jump between 3 or 4 different aspects of the system to get all that together. Now you can see it in one nice easy place. Now something else we've brought to the UI that you're going to see that also came in a maintenance window flavor is something called patch on demand. So you may have environments where installation windows on a regularly scheduled on a regular schedule is not possible. So what you really want is the ability to detect new patches, perhaps pre-download them, maybe set up a reboot window for the weekends, a scheduled reboot, but installation happens when that customer calls me and says, yeah, you have time, go for it. So this is what Patch on Demand is going to bring you. You're going to have that ability to go into a system, target multiple devices, say Patch on Demand, and outside of your regular schedule, you'll be able to trigger a patch cycle. So you'll be able to install all previously approved patches, get them all done, include a reboot or not, and move on. So if they say, tonight at 11 is your window, you're going to be able to target Patch on Demand at your devices, set it for a once schedule tonight at 11. Or if they say right now is the time, no problem, you have a do it right now option in that as well. And I'll show you that as we go through our demo. So Patch on Demand brings that kind of one-click trigger pull to get everything patched up and ready to go. So once we've done that, a modal box will appear on your screen. As you can see, it contains very patch-specific items. So basically your 2 schedule types, your force reboot or not. Very simple, but gets the job done really effectively. All that information also filters into your audit trail. So if you're familiar with the new direct support audit trails, information about the what happened at the beginning of Patch on Demand, so how many patches were targeted, what kind of patches were they, will show up, and then it'll tell you what kind of actions were successful or not and what the results were.
Scott, just a quick question on patch. The reboot windows, are those forced or optional?
Always optional. So reboot windows will go into a process where they will ask, do you want to allow the user to postpone beyond that window? So those windows will pop up if a patch requires a reboot to get itself completed. It'll pop up with our nice new pop-up, and if you haven't seen that yet, it doesn't look like the old sort of boring, flavorless window box. It is now an Incentral specific box that gives you a branded icon. It gives you a countdown to when the system would be planning to reboot. You have the ability to postpone those reboots right there, and so you can allow customers to postpone beyond that window or force them to reboot within that window. So it'll continually count down to when our window expires, and they have to choose to reboot sometime within that window. However, they can postpone phone up to the end of it if they choose. So at some point they'll be rebooting. There's never an option to just completely outright cancel reboots, but because the feedback from customers was, well, if I allow people to cancel reboots, that's what they're going to do, and they're going to continue to cancel reboots for the next month and a half. So it will always ultimately force them to reboot, but they can choose to just keep postponing, and with the eventuality that when they're no longer at their system, it's going to reboot, or they can choose to just go ahead and do it right away. All right, so the second big change to N-central is customer sites. So the feedback from a lot of partners was, yes, I have multiple customers and I've been able to categorize them into customer levels, but each of those customers may have various sites or various groupings that I want to deal with. So for example, I might have enable, but I have enable east, I have enable west, I have enable satellite site north. I want to be able to keep all these under the enable heading and still keep them associated with the enable world, rather than creating individual customer sites as I go. So, fair enough. What we've done is we've created the ability to have customer sites, which means underneath the customer you can have multiple groupings of devices. So, for example, in the past it was customer 1, you'd have devices 1. Customer 2 had one group of devices, etc. Now you're going to be able to have customer 1 and then a grouping of headquarters, a grouping of data center, a grouping of remote workers. So they aren't necessarily locations, they're whatever groupings you choose to make them. It's very dynamic in that way. And again, this is all focused back on simple, but as dynamically diverse as you need it to be. Now, you may say, okay, great, how do we set that up? Well, what you're going to see is another wizard. So the success with the patch wizard was sort of universally accepted as something we want to continue with. So you're going to see that used predominantly throughout all of our setup options to really kind of help you get through the tasks of setting up patch and eventually I would suspect AV and that kind of thing, and in this case customer sites. So when you get into the customer site setup, you're going to have the ability to, just as you would creating a new customer, set up the site name, licensing type, etc., or you can choose to inherit from the customer above it. So you can always inherit the information from the customer above, or you can specifically set it up for that customer. Again, customer sites are treated almost like a customer in that they have their same agents, or they have an agent unto themselves, they have a probe for themselves. They're treated very similarly to a customer. They, of course, can share probes, however. So if you have a customer level probe, you're going to have the new ability to share that with your sites. So they can either try the local site probe, and if that one's not available, we have logic now that it can use the customer level probe, and so on. So that gives you a lot more dynamic control of your probes and where things are being controlled or monitored from. But sites really are similar to a customer level.
Scott, quick question from the audience. Is there a fixed number of sites that MSPs can install under a customer, or can they do lots?
No, I don't believe we have a fixed number. So you can go nuts and add as many as you need to. I've yet to see a ceiling on that. However, we can obviously check into that. But my understanding is no, it just keeps on going. I've added up to 20, I think, so far, and I haven't had any problems. So I believe the sky's the limit there. All right, so we progress through our wizard. It generates our new customer site, and we're good to go. It's now created a blue level in N-central, so we're familiar with the red system level if you're an on-premise. If you're hosted, you would know the orange SO level. We have the customer level, and now underneath each customer there will be blue levels, which are sites. Now, you may say, okay, I have a whole bunch of customers already. I want to move devices into these sites. I want to just simply almost drag and drop them. How can I affect that? So, absolutely. Again, comes with a really nice wizard. So, the ability to move devices from site to site, site to customer, customer to site, customer to customer, is all done through this single wizard. And it's simply going to the All Devices view, selecting the devices you want to move, clicking the move button, and then this wizard will pop up. It'll identify where you're going to move the devices to. It's very intelligent in terms of identifying that, a probe is on this device. What do you want us to do with this probe? Do we leave it behind? Do we take it with us to the new site? You have profiles that are in use that don't exist at the new site you're going to. Do you want to swap it to a different profile? All those little housekeeping things that you might not think of as you move a device from place to place. There's a lot of complexities in terms of what's associated with a device. We're going to really seamlessly help you guide through that process. So don't have to worry when you move devices. Everything will be taken care of. Everything will be presented to you in a nice, easy way to understand and easy to help get it moved over. So it's going to go through the process of checking for probes. It's going to just make sure that everything is finally aligned at the very end, give you a summary of what's going to happen so that you're confident to hit the OK button, and it does its thing.
Okay, Scott, a couple questions here before we move on. So first question was, do I have to use sites? So for example, if they upgraded from an older version to N-Central 10.1, do they have to set up sites then and there?
You can simply just use your customer level, and if you're comfortable with that easy kind of turnkey just use customer solution, then perfect. What I anticipate is some people will simply have customer sites, and some people will have, or customers rather, and some people will have customers plus sites, depending on the complexity of the various environments you're bringing on board.
And someone else was asking, can they have multiple tiers of sites? And the answer to that is no for now. So it's customer, and then one tier of different sites, and then under those sites are devices. So I couldn't have a customer, then a location, then a department or something like that. So it's just one site. Now that being said, like Scott said, you can kind of organize it however you want. So if I wanted to have a flat hierarchy of, sales department, marketing department, I couldn't have a site on top of that, but I can divide things any way that I want with that one tier of sites.
That's right, exactly. And some people ask you, what happens when I move a device? Am I reinstalling the agent? Am I reinstalling everything? The answer is no. We're just making a small tweak to the agent, and it just does its thing. When you click the move button, it actually queues up that move. So when that device is available and ready to move, then we do move it. So as soon as that device becomes available, we effect the move on it. Let's move on to automation, and we will come back to some of this because we will have a demo a little later, and we'll have a Q&A as well. So we'll definitely take a second look at that question list. So don't feel bad if we didn't get to your question. There are plenty, so we'll be sure to get to them. Okay, so automation. We've brought a bunch of new functionality to the Automation Manager system. I already feel, having used a bunch myself in my past life, our Automation Manager, our scripting element is head and shoulders above anything else I've ever used. It's very intuitive, it's very easy to get into and use without really having any prior knowledge of things like PowerShell, which I don't. So it really makes it very open and very functional for me. However, we can always do a better job of educating and helping guide you through the process. So that's sort of what the focus has been on Automation Manager this time around. You can see we've included a new training video section, so we have a whole bevy of videos for you that'll allow you to kind of get in there, really kind of understand from some experts how to use the product, how to make some basic policies. We've also added in watermarking, which I really like. So before you might get a policy open for file exists, for example, and it would just have a blank box. And so I would struggle with, well, how do I format the information I need to put in there? Is it C:\\, or is it just / in the folder name? So we've watermarked them with examples of the kind of input that we're expecting. That really helps you kind of quickly move through it and not have to do any guesswork with regards to what fits in there. We also have a new option to search objects, so you can start freeform typing in the search bar at the top what you're looking for. So I might put in something like script, and it'll come up with anything that has the word script in it, run script, script output, etc., etc. So we have, I don't know, several hundred, I think we're up to 700 or 800 different elements of the system at this point. And even for me, who sees it day in, day out, remembering what's in all those hundreds of elements becomes difficult. So this is great in that I can just type in what I'm looking for, and it'll quickly kind of zoom into simply those items and tooltips along with them to help me understand what those items do.
Okay, great. Thanks for that, Scott. So lots of great stuff you saw there in Patch. In sites, so we really think sites is going to help a lot of MSPs organize how they manage their devices and how they deploy agents and probes and all of that. When it comes to MSP managers, so I had mentioned that back in August we acquired a service management platform and rebranded it as MSP Manager. The feedback from MSP Manager has been phenomenal. So everybody loves how easy it is to create tickets, to route tickets to different technicians, to have access to all passwords in one place, all customer information in one location. The number one feature that we kept hearing from the day that we launched MSP Manager is, when can I create tickets from N-Central? And that day is today. So with N-Central 10.1, being able to do everything that you do with all of our other PSA or ticketing integrations, so now you can do it in MSP Manager. And you know what that comes down to, if you're using any of our PSA integrations today, if you're using Help Desk Manager today, you know that when you're performing support in N-central, so I'm under direct support, I'm doing command prompt commands, I'm restarting processes, everything that's available under direct support gets tracked by that audit trail that, Scott showed us that very quickly. But the audit trail is monitoring everything I do in direct support, and then I can just pull up the audit trail, select a couple items, and push that out as a ticket. Well, now you can do that to MSP Manager. The other great thing, we just talked about automation. So when it comes to automation, a lot of our partners are taking full advantage of automation. So instead of doing weekly maintenance and other tasks like that manually, they have just set up automation policies so that weekly maintenance, defrags, flush DNS, etc. on every workstation. That's actually just an automation policy that runs each week under those maintenance windows. And then once it runs, now it can push a ticket to MSP Manager to say, we've done 15 minutes of maintenance, we've done 30 minutes of maintenance across all of those workstations. So this is how a lot of MSPs are squeezing more efficiency out of their business. So if I can just run an automation policy on 1,000 devices, create 1,000 tickets for 15 minutes of billable time, that, instead of manual processes, this is how we are seeing a lot of MSPs become incredibly profitable. And this is how we see a lot of MSPs where each technician is responsible for 300, 400, and sometimes as even high as 600 devices for one technician. And it's through automation, it's through automatic ticket creation, things like that. So, I'd really encourage you to take a look at MSP Manager, take a look at the integration between N-central and MSP Manager, see how you can start automating, some of those key areas of your business. So, the full feature list for N-central 10.1 is too long to go into. This happens with every release. Like I said before, we do 2 major releases a year, and we cram so much functionality into it. I would really encourage you, if you have any specific questions, get on a demo with one of our sales engineers, ask those specific questions. If there's something that you've been chatting with your channel sales representative about, go ahead, reach out to them, get that additional info that you're looking for on here. So with that, I'm going to pass things off to Scott to give us a demo. And just because I've seen a couple more people asking this, maybe people joined a little later, N-central 10.1 is available today. So right after this webinar, you can go on the NRC, you can reach out to your channel sales representative and get your hands on N-central 10.1. And then when it comes to hosted customers, I'd really encourage you to reach out to your channel sales to get a firmer date, but typically it's going to be in the next 2 to 3 weeks after we release a major release like this, that we would push it out to the hosted N-central. So Scott, there, I'm passing it over to you.
Perfect, thank you. So let's go over a couple of the things we covered here today in a little bit more detail. So let's start with moving devices and sites. So for sites, we're all familiar with the bright orange of the service organization level, and we're all familiar with the customer level. However, now you'll notice in our hierarchy, we have a new option to dig down a bit more into customer sites. So our sites are now blue. To designate we are at the site level. We've added in some new navigation as well. You have the ability to navigate up your tree. So if you're at my test site, I can navigate up to my customer level for that, and I can navigate up to my SO level for that. Very quickly, one click gets me there in kind of a breadcrumb fashion, moving up the chain. If I have new devices in the site, so I've used my actions, add site option, I've gone through the wizard, I've created a site. I want to move my devices out of my customer level and into my site. How simple is that action? Well, the answer is it's basically one click. So I'm going to go to my all devices view. Here's my devices. I'm going to move my device here out of another test site into my test site. So we're going to grab this device here. We're going to say let's move devices. This is going to bring up my Move Devices wizard. So I'm going to move it to my test site. We're going to size this window so I can see it. There we go. We're going to go next. So it's going to check the monitoring, make sure that the probe that we're using and the destination probe have been kind of swapped. I don't happen to have a probe in this environment, but in this environment, if I did, it would point out that I'm losing connection to my to my environment, and I am raising up my the connection to the next environment. So if I had a network device here, it was reliant on a local probe, no problem. When I get to that other location, I can swap to that local probe. So it'll just hand off the monitoring between one probe to another for me. If I happen to be a probe, it'll ask me, well, a lot of devices rely on you that you're moving. Do we want to leave the probe behind, or do we want to take that probe with us? Here, obviously when we get to that new environment, rules are going to apply to this device. So it is going to go through a process of, applying patch management and applying AV, etc., in accordance with the rules at that new site or that new customer level. So it's just making sure I'm aware of all that. If I'm transitioning from a site to a customer or a site to a different site that doesn't have this profile, it's going to say, look, you know what, that profile that you're using doesn't exist where you're about to go. So do you want to pick a different profile? So you can make sure that you assume a proper profile if there aren't rules that are going to sort it out for me. It'll take care of all the various housekeeping issues of moving a device. And then when I hit finish, it's going to tell me, okay, that device is moving. So it doesn't say it's moved, you'll notice. It says it is moving, which means that's queued up to move. So if I pick 500 of them, obviously they're going to move in sequence. If I'm moving one device at a time, it happens almost instantaneously, but it's going to sit there and complete its action for me. I can either exit out of here, or I can simply just close directly or exit out of here and go watch the status and see what the result has been. So you can see in this environment, it's happened almost immediately. My device has moved, and they are now both into my test site. So it's moved over into my test site for me. So it's as easy as that. Grab 5 or 6 devices, click move, they all move with me. Simple, seamless, takes literally 5 seconds, and you can get through that move process very easily. And again, it doesn't reinstall any agents, it simply makes a tweak to the agent so that it identifies with the new environment. So that's moving devices and sites. Very simple, but I think gives you that dynamic flexibility that you're really looking for.
Scott, someone's asking if the device should be online while you're trying to do this move process.
So we are going to check in with the agent and ask it to do its thing. So if that device is offline, we're going to queue up the move until the device pops online and then allow it to action it afterwards. Okay, so let's move into patch management then. And actually, before we move into patch management, Ali, earlier I mentioned that UX team and some of the really neat new things they're bringing to the table. And I just noticed one thing that is new in 10.1 that we haven't really touched on that I wanted to point out, because it's something really simple, but I think makes a big impact to our users. And that is the notification on or off option. So you'll notice in the top right, we have a bell that's appeared here. We have, coming from the SE team, I saw people struggle with this in the past. How do I turn off notifications for a single environment? Or in this case, you may be building sites, and you might have one site that is kind of a test area. You don't want to get alerts from that test area, but you do want notifications from every other environment. Well, in the past, that meant going to the service organization level, taking out all the contacts from those levels, going all the way down through your customers and adjusting them individually. We don't want to have to do that to simply just turn off notifications. So with a quick brainstorming session and some user feedback from the UX team, the user experience team, we came up with a really simple solution, which is simply go to the level that you're interested in turning off the alerts for, click the bell, and choose to turn on or off your notifications. So you can see it's green when the notifications are available for that level. It is gray when the notifications are off, and I have a hierarchical view of all my environments and where notifications are on or off for. It's a really simple button. It does a really simple thing. It simply turns off notifications for that environment. It's not quite like downtime because it doesn't suppress monitoring or anything like that. It simply turns off notifications from that environment. End of story. So it's really simple, but really powerful, really effective if you want to have staging environments and that kind of thing. That's one more thing that UX team has kind of brought to the table for us. All right, let's talk a little bit about patch. Being the PM for patch, this is obviously near and dear to my heart, so let me show you some of the things that we've brought out for you. So I mentioned the profile is no longer tied to your schedule, so let's just jump into a quick profile. So here is our new profile. You'll notice no scheduling options are in here. We've reworded some things, so I sat down with the development team to really kind of dig into how each of these mechanics work and tried to really kind of flesh that information out for you in the write-up on each of these. So I'd encourage you to reread through these and make sure you understand all the nuances of what they do. Communicate externally for updates is new. It used to be communicate with Windows Update, but this feature actually decides if your patch cache isn't available for Windows updates, we'll go to Windows Update, and for third party, we'll go straight to the vendors such as Adobe, Java, etc. So I wanted to make sure that was visible to you, so we reworded it a bit for that. I've also added in a little feature here that you might not notice right off, but is in fact quite useful for any environments where you just can't have devices that go to your local patch cache. So you may have everything in your environment set up to go to your cache, but you may have a subset of devices that just can't look for caches. I don't want to deal with the logic of the system, flipping through various patch caches and then ultimately deciding it can't get there, or trying to pull something across a VPN. I want this set of devices associated with this profile to simply go directly out to my vendors and to Windows Update. Maybe they're laptops, maybe they never come into the office. If you choose to put a 0 in this item, that's exactly what you will affect, is any device using this patch profile will simply skip the cache altogether and go straight out to external sources all the time. Install missed patches at next boot. So this is something new we've added as well. So for example, if the schedule was missed the night before because, although we've told them 100 times that customer has unfortunately just not been able to leave their machine on at night, this will capture that particular device. So the next morning when the system starts up, we're going to notice there's approved patches waiting in the wings that haven't been installed. We're going to go ahead and get those installed for you. And after a short delay, of course, so that we don't bog down the system while it's rebooting. So really effective way to make sure that those missed patches become installed patches. Windows Update access, this is the control over what your end users can do as far as accessing Windows Update and making changes on their own. We want to generally curtail that, so here we have the option to allow your end users to do whatever they want with regards to going to Windows Update and grabbing patches. Here we can limit it to administrators and applications such as Forefront, which sometimes triggers a patch install. If a user were to go and try and do it, it's going to prompt for administrator credentials. So your tech in the field can still get their job done, but the users will be locked out. Or if we really want to lock it down, restricted to in-central activity, which means basically anyone in the field, local at the machine, can't do anything with regards to getting to Windows Update. We're going to lock that down so only in-central can do it. So anything that you want done, you need to either come in through in-central or have a scheduled activity through maintenance windows, etc. That really locks it down. So that's your profile. So now where did all my schedules go? Well, they've moved into maintenance windows, and to demonstrate that, I'm going to show you the patch setup wizard. The patch setup wizard contains all the windows, so we'll kind of kill two birds with one stone. So here we have the ability then with a few simple clicks to go through the entire process of setting up my profile, my windows, my rule, and executing on that rule. So it really turns a process that may, if you're trying to make a more complex setup, that could have been multiple clicks into 4 or 5. So in this case then, it's allowing me to create a new profile or use an existing one. If I'm using an existing one, it's not going to allow me to edit it. We wouldn't want to accidentally adjust 2,000 other devices at the same time. So we will allow you to use an existing profile or create new. It's going to walk us through the process of creating a detection window, a process of pre-downloading. So before, the old profile had an option for pre-download. You'll notice that's gone now. We've moved it into a maintenance window. The problem with the old setup was if you chose to pre-download, it would pre-download as soon as you approve patches, which may not be the optimal time for doing that kind of work. So in this case then, we're going to allow you to schedule when that pre-download happens. So I can pre-download on Wednesday and install on Thursday. Installation windows. And so the real advantage of a maintenance window is that we have that period of time in which it can action and not a point in time. So much less opportunity for it to fail or to miss its window. But we also have the ability to add multiples. So if I want to have 5 or 6 installation windows and 4 reboot windows, I have the absolute ability to do that now. I also have the ability to skip steps. So if I don't want to create an installation window, I can simply choose to not do that. Whereas in the past, you would have had to have created some kind of installation window. This allows me to have a detection, a pre-download, and maybe a reboot, but use patch on demand to do my installations for those really sensitive environments that are going to call me after hours or during the day and say, okay, tonight we have a 2-hour window, you can use that, go click. I need to be able to accommodate that, so I can now do that quite effectively. We'll progress through our reboot windows. Reboots have been pulled out of that giant grid of maintenance windows that we used to have and brought into a patch-specific window. I've reworded a lot of the content there. I've added a lot of new help content to help guide you through what each of the functions do and really kind of simplify things for you. And then we get to the rule generation, so I can name my rule, I can enable third party, I can choose my filters and my targets for my customers, or I can leave them blank and simply stage this, so I can create everything, have it ready to go with no customers or filter in it, and then when I'm ready to turn it on, add my customers. And again, this really nicely lays it out for us. Our schedule is really clear. I understand exactly what's going to happen, and I can finish. Now, by finishing it, it creates my rule, so it ties it all up with a nice bow. I can either finish and close the wizard, or I can open and edit that rule because I have some more complex stuff that I want to add to it. Maybe I want to add more maintenance windows for installation, for example. The other really nice thing is because this is all contained in a single rule, you no longer have to jump between 3 or 4 places to understand exactly what's going on with patch. So I can tell what devices are targeted, I can see the patch is turned on or off, whether third party is on or off. I can see exactly what maintenance windows are being used, exactly what customers are being targeted, and of course what devices are being targeted, all within a single place. So really easy to kind of navigate. Patch on demand is just as simple. You can access that from the All Devices view. You simply select the devices you want to patch. You can also access it from active issues. So if you see devices that have patch failures, for example, and you want to trigger patch immediately, this is a great way to do it. We're simply going to target 2 things. I'm going to go to Add Task, Patch on Demand. It's going to pop up my modal box. I can do it right now or once in the future. And I can force a reboot or simply leave the reboot alone and let the device reboot either as per schedule or I can have the end user reboot if they want to. Either way, a really simplistic or simple way to get it done with 1 or 2 clicks and you're good to go. The other nice thing about this is, as I mentioned, it all pops into the audit trail so you can see all those patch on demand tasks, see what the results were, etc. All right, so that takes us through the majority of the big changes in N-Central 10, and there's certainly lots of others as well, but I think those touch on the biggest ones.
Okay, great. I just want to remind everybody, we're happy to stick around, take your questions as you have them. So go ahead, type those in the chat box. If you want to learn more on N-Central, go to the NRC, check that out, reach out to your channel sales representative, talk to them about some of these great features, again, if you want to get into more detail. And of course, N-Central 10.1 is available right now. So go ahead, get your hands on that. So I had a couple people asking if they can get their hands on the slides. So yes, we are recording today's webinar. So we'll send you the recording and a copy of the slides. Really encourage you to share those with your team, for the people that couldn't make it here today.
There's a question about Report Manager and will it be compatible with 10.1? So the first iteration of Report Manager will accommodate things like moving devices. So when a device jumps from one place to another, customer to customer, are we able to track that? So Report Manager will track that in its backend database and all that good stuff. And if you want to get to that version, Report Manager is always a little bit behind N-Central. Just as data changes in N-Central, we want to make sure it's jiving with Report Manager. So Report Manager is currently in beta for its latest release. That said, I don't believe there's any gating issues in Report Manager. I think it's been pretty solid. So if you're interested in getting 10.1 right away and you want Report Manager up and working, simply go to the NRC and under Community, apply for the beta, jump straight into the Report Manager beta, and you should be good to go there. So you can have everything up and running if that is what you'd like to do. So yes, absolutely. Now that said, Report Manager will come hot on the heels of 10.1, so it will be out directly, I suspect. Are notifications tied to sites? So someone was asking about notifications. Yes, sites have their own notifications, so you can suppress notifications at just the site level, or you can suppress them at the customer level for all sites. You can really kind of make that as granular as you want, and yes, each site has its own notifications. Let's see, what other questions do we have? Can a device be assigned to more than one group? So no, because each site has its own agents, its own probes, etc. You're going to be specifically putting a device into one bucket, one site, as it were. So it can't be in multiple groups. If you want to create multiple groups simply for kind of filtering purposes or patch purposes, custom device properties are typically what we would recommend you look at. They're essentially tags on devices that can be filtered. They're a really effective way to create specific groups.
A couple of people asking about hosted and central again. So hosted and central would not integrate with MSP Manager just yet, but as soon as we release the 10.1 update to the hosted and central servers, that's when you would benefit from the MSP Manager integration.
And some people are asking, can I control which probe connects to which device, etc.? So yes, you can. In Central, one of the things I didn't get a chance to show today is the ability to assign probes. So you can say, these 5 devices use probe X, and these 8 devices use probe Y. So you have that ability now with a one click on the All Devices view to reassign probes at will, rather than relying on the logic of the system to pick the right one. And of course, the logic is still there, and the logic has in fact been enhanced, but even so, if you have very specific needs, you can easily reshuffle them. You also have the ability now, from a patch cache perspective and a monitoring perspective, to assign probes. So you can say, I have 3 probes in this environment. Probe A is available for monitoring. Probe B and C are going to be my probe caches. So probe A will never perform as a probe cache. The logic's also been enhanced to say, okay, my device needs to patch and it's going to go to look for its cache. The cache available at the site is no longer available. No problem. Okay, we're going to go look at the customer level and use that. For example. So it's going to be able to jump to the next available probe. Or you can simply lock it down and say this site only uses its local probe, and if it can't find that, then it's out of luck, and maybe my profile is going to have it go out to Windows Update directly.
Okay, Scott, I think we have time for 2 more questions. So one of them is, during the upgrade from previous versions to Central 10.1, do patches have to be configured with the new scheduling wizard, or will we just kind of inherit some of the new functionality?
Good question. Okay, so during your upgrade, and first of all, I will recommend highly that when you download in Central 10.1, there's a big red box, and that big red box says to download the patch upgrade PDF. I highly encourage you to grab that and read through it prior to your upgrade. Generally speaking, though, we have tried to accommodate for all of the shifts and changes that need to happen. So what will happen is the profiles, they have schedules in them today. When you do your upgrade, those schedules will be converted to maintenance windows and applied back to the rule that applied that profile. So assuming you've applied most of your profiles with rules, as we typically would recommend you do, those maintenance windows will be generated in those rules and simply filter down to the devices. So it'll just take care of itself. Now, if you've just applied patch profiles directly on devices, no problem. What they will do is they will generate device-specific patch windows. So it'll generate them directly on the device. That's a little harder to manage, I would say. So typically speaking, we would recommend you go the route of the rule, and that will pretty much take care of everything for you. So the upgrade path for you should be pretty well seamless. But read through the PDF. I have tried to explain any nuances of where anything could possibly have a conflict and how to resolve that ahead of time. So do pick that up.
And Scott, I think you said that was a shorter document, right?
Oh, it's very short. So I think it's like a total of 5 or 6 pages, including a table of contents and a title page. So it's very short, very easy. There's not really much that can go wrong. We've tried to make sure that everything's sorted out for you. But there are a couple of ways that if you'd accidentally done something in your system that's going to cause a conflict, we're going to flesh that out for you and help you fix it.
Okay, Scott, last question. Someone's asking, for maintenance windows, does it have to be at the same time or the same period each day, or can they configure different times on different days?
So with the beauty of maintenance windows is you can have multiple windows. So if I want to set a maintenance window for install on Monday at 10 and an install window on Tuesday at 11, no problem. I can keep going and have 5 windows a day at completely different times every day all week. So again, we've tried to give you that level of dynamic control that you might want while still making it very simple. We've seen a lot of other products out there try at this, and typically speaking, when we get into make things simple, unfortunately they tend to go overly simplistic, relying more on graphs and pictures and without giving you the control that you ultimately will need to make it happen. So we've tried to keep that simplicity level while allowing those who need to be more dynamic and more flexible to do that as well.
Okay, and thanks for that, everybody. I just want to reiterate that in Q1 of next year, that is when you will see the Direct Connect upgrade to the MSP Anywhere backend technology. So that's when we'll benefit from all the great connection speeds that MSP Anywhere brings to the table. I know a lot of people were asking about that. So Scott, just want to thank you for your time today.
Thanks, Ali.
And thanks everyone for joining. If you do have questions about N-Central, please go to n-able.com, reach out to us, get some more info, and for Enable partners, as always, please reach out to your channel sales representative so we can get you any answers to questions that you have. Thanks everyone, and have a great day.